The morning sun rose slowly over Ouagadougou, its golden light stretching across the dusty rooftops of the city. In a modest office within the presidential compound, Ibrahim Traore, the young, passionate president of Burkina Faso, sat quietly at a worn wooden desk. The room was simple: a couple of framed photographs, a map of the nation, and a faint hum from the ceiling fan breaking the silence. This was no palace fit for a traditional head of state. But then again, Traore was no traditional president. He was a soldier first, a man of the people, a boy who had walked long roads with bare feet, seen friends buried too soon, and felt the sting of sacrifice. Yet in this quiet space, surrounded by papers and a faint smell of freshly brewed tea, his thoughts weren't about military campaigns or cabinet meetings. Not today. Today they were about a boy, a shirt, and a dream. He picked up a piece of paper, smoothed it out, and read aloud to himself. To Cristiano Ronaldo, it began. For many in Burkina Faso, the boy from Madeira was more than just a footballer. To countless young people in the crowded neighborhoods of Ouagadougou, in remote villages where dust rose like mist every morning, he was a symbol. A symbol that no matter how harsh life's trials, no matter how deep one came from the earth, one could rise, against all odds. Ibrahim Traore remembered being that boy. Years ago. A boy with patched shorts, a shirt too big for his frame, and a dream too bold for the narrow paths that lined his village. In those moments when despair sank deep, when nights felt long and empty, he'd find a faint, crackly signal on an old radio. A voice that announced a goal in a language he didn't understand, and a boy called Ronaldo, making the world watch. With every kick, every run, every victory, the boy called Ronaldo became a beacon, a reminder that strength came from sacrifice, grit from grit, and glory from never yielding. President Traore sighed deeply and gripped the pen tighter. The words came from somewhere deep within, pouring forth like a spring long buried. Dear Cristiano Ronaldo, my name is Ibrahim Traore, and I am a witness to how far the sound of a hopeful voice can carry across oceans and across borders. Today, I write to you, not as a president, nor as a soldier, but as a boy who once watched from afar, inspired by the way you refused to give up. In moments when I felt broken, when my people felt broken, it was stories like yours that kept us going. He stopped for a moment, brushing a hand across his short-cropped hair. Memories surged like waves, days of uncertainty, nights when the sound of gunfire shook the air, moments when the only thing that kept him going was knowing that someone, somewhere, refused to surrender. Through every match you played, through every goal you celebrated, through every moment you rose when others fell, you spoke a language we could understand. Not words, but conviction. Not speeches, but moments that said, you can rise too. President Traore wiped a bead of sweat from the paper. Today, as I lead my country through trials and tribulations, I remember the boy I used to be. The boy who believed because of a man he had never met. The boy who refused to succumb to despair because a voice came across the radio saying, keep going. He drew a deep breath. The next line felt like the beating heart of this letter. I am inviting you, Mr. Ronaldo, to Burkina Faso, not as a guest of state, not for an event or a spectacle, but as a brother, as a witness, as a symbol for countless children here who carry your name in their hearts and find strength in the sound of your victories. He glanced out the window, the courtyard bathed in morning light. Somewhere beyond the walls, in neighborhoods ravaged by poverty, in orphanages and dusty soccer fields, there were children running, laughing, dreaming, the same way he had once run. If you can come, he concluded, you will walk upon the earth where countless barefoot boys whisper your name as a prayer, You will stand upon a land that has felt deep pain but never lost its voice. You will witness the strength of those who rise every morning, despite the weight of the world, to find a reason to smile, to hope, to try one more time. And in that moment, I pray, you will understand how much your story has meant to ours. May the boy from Madeira and the boy from Burkina Faso walk together, if only for a moment, under the same sun, with deep respect and admiration. Ibrahim Traore. He placed the pen down, exhaled slowly, and felt a quiet peace settle upon him. The letter was more than words. It was a prayer, a beacon thrown across borders and across worlds. Moments later, an aide entered, soft-spoken and respectful. Traore handed the letter to him. "Make sure this reaches him," he said quietly. "Yes, Mr. President," the aide replied. Then he left the room, holding within that envelope the voice of a nation that refused to give up. As the door clicked shut, President Traore stood and stepped out onto the balcony. The morning air was crisp, filled with the sound of distant traffic, children calling to one another, and the faint beating of a drum from a nearby courtyard. In that moment, Ibrahim Traore felt a connection far deeper than politics, borders, or language. Somewhere, across a sea of sand and a stretch of blue ocean, a boy from Madeira might read this letter, might remember, might understand. And in that moment, across the spaces that divide the world, one heart would speak to another, and the threads of a miracle would begin to weave themselves. Then he left the room, holding within that envelope the voice of a nation that refused to give up. Far across the globe, in the warm southern sun of Madeira, Portugal, Cristiano Ronaldo was wrapping up a quiet morning training session. The sound of a bouncing ball echoed in the courtyard, crisp and rhythmic. To Ronaldo, these moments were sacred. Moments when the world's noise fell away and he was just a boy again, chasing a ball across a concrete surface. That morning felt like any other until a member of his team stepped out of the house, holding an envelope sealed with a wax emblem. The man spoke softly. "Cristiano, this came in today. It's from Burkina Faso." Ronaldo stopped, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and furrowed his brow. "Burkina Faso?" he asked aloud, brushing the blades of grass from his shorts. He walked closer and the staff member placed the letter in his hands. The paper felt different, weightier somehow. The seal bore a crest he didn't recognize. Curious, he broke it open and unfolded the crisp paper. As his eyes fell upon the first words, "Dear Cristiano Ronaldo," the sound of the world dawned, and all that existed was the voice rising from the page. He read aloud, almost whispering, "My name is Ibrahim Traore, and I am a witness to how far the sound of a hopeful voice can carry across oceans and across borders." Each line sank deeper, a quiet hammer beating upon the walls of a heart accustomed to glory and defeat. Here was a man, a president, yes, but more importantly, a boy, shaped by the threads of memory and grit, reaching out across the world, not as a politician, but as a brother, not as a fan seeking an autograph, but as one witness to another. Ronaldo sank slowly to the edge of a stone bench, letter shaking in hand. "Through every match you played, Through every goal you celebrated. Through every moment you rose when others fell. You spoke a language we could understand. Not words, but conviction. Not speeches, but moments that said, "You can rise too." He felt a sting rise in the corners of his eyes. Memories bubbled forth like long-suppressed spring water. The boy he once was in Funchal, the long nights when a tired mother offered quiet encouragement, the countless moments when doubt pressed down, and only a ball and a dream kept him going. And now, across an ocean and across countless stories, here was another boy, a man, a president, reminding him that those moments meant something far beyond stadium lights and shining trophies. May the boy from Madeira and the boy from Burkina Faso walk together, if only for a moment, under the same sun. Ronaldo exhaled slowly, brushing away a lone tear. The sound of silence pressed upon him like a holy space. This was not a request for an endorsement, a brand campaign, or a gala dinner. This was a call to bear witness, to stand upon a piece of earth that bore the footprints of countless hopeful hearts and say, "I remember, I understand, I am with you." He rose, still holding the letter, and called out to his assistant. "Check my schedule for the next 2 weeks," he said quietly, voice wavering. "Clear it if needed. We're going to Burkina Faso." The assistant stopped for a moment, surprised, then nodded. "Of course, Mr. Ronaldo." Ronaldo walked inside and sank into a chair by a long, sunlit window. The letter rested upon the table, a beacon upon its surface. Suddenly, every medal he had won felt light. Every award felt small. What weighed upon him now was a quiet responsibility. One born not of glory, but of belonging. He thought of the countless children he had met across the world, the hospitals he had visited, the smiles he had exchanged. Yet this was different. This was about roots that run deep into the earth. About a boy and a man connected by trials unseen. He picked up the phone and dialed a trusted advisor. "We're going to Burkina Faso. No press, no spectacle, no media circus. Just a man accepting a brother's hand." Then he sank back, letter pressed against his chest, and watched as the afternoon sun bathed the room in gold. Meanwhile, across the globe, the news had begun to circulate. A junior aide in the presidential office had quietly leaked a line from the letter to a trusted journalist. By morning, it was splashed across global media. President of Burkina Faso pens letter to Ronaldo, an invitation straight from the heart. The reaction was electric. Social media exploded with support. The sports world paused in collective reflection. Messages flooded in from every corner of the planet. This is what sports is about. Not just victories, but connections. A boy from Madeira and a boy from Burkina Faso. This is why we watch. This is why we believe. Ronaldo's biggest goal might be one he doesn't score, but one he witnesses. Ronaldo watched quietly as the world responded. Yet in the stillness of his heart, it felt different. Not like glory, not like applause. It felt like belonging. A week later, at a quiet airstrip in Lisbon, a private jet stood ready. Not a media entourage, not paparazzi nor camera crews. Just a handful of trusted staff, a translator, and a single suitcase with the essentials. Ronaldo stepped aboard and sank into a seat by the window. As the engines roared to life, he pulled out the letter one more time. The words felt as if they had been stitched into the very threads of his heart. Through every match you played, through every goal you celebrated, you spoke a language we could understand, not words, but conviction. As the jet lifted from the earth, rising above the misted morning, Ronaldo pressed the paper to his chest and closed his eyes. He didn't know precisely what to expect when the wheels touched down upon Burkina Faso soil. He didn't know the sights, the sounds, the stories that would greet him. But he knew one thing. Somewhere, across the expanse of sand and sun, a boy and a man were about to walk upon the same ground, as brothers, and that was enough. The morning sun bathed the runway at Ouagadougou International Airport in a warm, golden light. It was a quiet scene, a far cry from the usual chaos of paparazzi and cheering crowds that followed Cristiano Ronaldo across the globe. Today, he arrived almost like any other man. No camera crews, no flurry of security personnel, just a single SUV and a trusted assistant at his side. As the private jet came to a halt, the door slowly lowered, and Ronaldo stepped out. The Burkina Faso air embraced him, warm, dry, faintly fragrant with the earth and dust that spoke of resilience. At the edge of the tarmac stood a figure, dressed simply, no suit or ceremonial attire, just a crisp shirt and traditional cloth draped across one shoulder. President Ibrahim Traore watched quietly as the world-famous athlete descended the steps. For a moment, no words were exchanged. The sound of the wind brushing across the runway was the only witness as the boy from Madeira and the boy from Burkina Faso came face to face. Ronaldo halted a few steps away, placed a hand over his heart, and offered a slight nod. Traore responded in kind, pressing a hand to his chest, his voice soft and deep. "Welcome, my brother," not as a guest, but as one who has come home. Ronaldo felt the sting of emotion rise instantly. No flashbulbs, no headline seekers. Just one man greeting another with the quiet dignity of belonging. Then, Traore stepped closer, and the two embraced. Not the quick, camera-ready hug of politicians and celebrities, but a long, quiet one, the kind that spoke volumes. "Thank you for coming," Traore said as they pulled apart. "My people have been waiting, not for a hero, not for a star, but for a brother." Ronaldo smiled, voice wavering. "I came because of a letter that felt like a prayer, and I came because I felt the voice of a boy that refused to be silenced. I came because this feels like more than a visit. It feels like a calling." Traore placed a hand upon Ronaldo's shoulder and nodded quietly. "Then walk with me." The SUV pulled away from the airstrip and began to make its way down the dusty streets. The windows were down, and the sights and sounds of the city flowed inward like a tide. Street vendors waved shyly. Children ran alongside the car, grinning and calling out in shy, hopeful voices. "Ronaldo! Ronaldo!" "Ronaldo!" He waved, pressed a hand to the glass, and smiled. Yet it felt different this time. Not like a global icon basking in applause, but like a witness being welcomed into a sacred space. President Traore spoke softly. "These people have watched you for years, not just as a footballer, but as someone who refused to yield when times were hard. To many, you gave a message that was never spoken aloud, that even in a world that forgets its underdogs, strength can rise from nowhere, even from a boy with no shoes." Ronaldo turned, brushing a hand across the car door. That boy, he lives in all of us. Sometimes he disappears, buried under applause or defeat, until someone reminds us he's still there. That's what your letter did for me.
Traore smiled quietly, looking out across the bustling neighborhoods.
Then today, let us walk as those boys, not as men upon a stage, but as children upon a path. Let us remember why we started this journey long ago.
Ronaldo pressed his palm to the window as a group of children waved wildly, holding hand-drawn signs.
Welcome, brother Ronaldo. We believe because you believed.
Their joy was palpable, a soundless force that surged within the car, until Ronaldo felt the sting of tears rise in the corners of his eyes. He glanced down at the letter, the paper now worn, crinkled from countless moments of being read and reread.
Your words crossed oceans.
He said quietly.
And tonight I want to stand where those words came from.
Traore placed a hand upon the crinkled page and smiled.
Then tonight, you will stand upon the soil where this began. As the sun sank toward the horizon, the car pulled into a modest village about an hour from the capital. The scene was almost unreal. A courtyard bathed in amber light, a circle of families and children gathered upon worn benches, quiet except for the sound of soft drum beats rising from the heart of the earth. At the center, under the shade of a giant baobab tree, a space was cleared for the guest of honor. Not a stage, not a podium, just a space upon the earth. Ronaldo stepped out of the car and was met with silence, not silence of hesitation, but of reverence. The children watched with wide, hopeful eyes. The elder women pressed hands upon their hearts. The men nodded quietly, a quiet agreement passing between gazes. Then a soft voice called out, "Cristiano, welcome to Burkina Faso. We have been waiting for you." Ronaldo felt his knees weaken, not out of fatigue, but out of belonging. He stepped forward, brushing the hand of a boy holding a hand-drawn picture of a stadium. The boy smiled shyly. "My name is Karim," he said, voice soft. "I drew this for you. Will you stay for a while?" Ronaldo sank down upon one knee, brushing the boy's head. "For as long as you want, Karim, as long as you want." Then, with Traore standing beside him, Ronaldo spoke aloud for the first time upon this land. "I came because a boy from Burkina Faso refused to be forgotten, because a president refused to forget where he came from. Today, I stand here as a brother, as a witness, as one voice among many. What you have built upon this earth is more beautiful than any stadium. What you have built upon the hearts of these children is stronger than any trophy I have lifted. Thank you for reminding me why I began. Thank you for reminding the world that every boy, every girl, every person with a beating heart has worth. Today I am not Cristiano Ronaldo the player. Today I am just a boy from Madeira, holding the hand of a boy from Burkina Faso. Together, always together." A wave of applause rose from the gathered families, and in that sound was an echo of belonging, not belonging to nations or titles, but belonging to a deeper thing, the shared hum of the human heart. President Traore stepped beside him, voice strong and resonant. "Then let this moment live, not in the pages of history books, not upon screens, but upon the hearts of every child who hears it. Let it whisper to them when darkness falls, you matter, you can rise, you can stand upon this earth and change its very shape." Ronaldo nodded, brushing a hand across the weathered paper of the letter. And as the sun sank beyond the horizon, the boy from Madeira and